So it's a bit more detail on Monopoly now. So first of all, let's just recap the characteristics of Monopoly. What were they?
25% market share.
Yeah, so
Uh,
uh one or one buyer, one seller, in a pure Monopoly. Good. What else?
they're the price setters in the market.
Good.
Um, they're differentiated.
Yep, lots of product differentiation, or if it's a sole seller, they're selling a unique product,
Mm.
and there are high barriers to entry and exit. Okay.
Mm.
Such as startup costs, especially if it's a natural monopoly, but that's another thing we have to look at in more detail. One thing that monopolies might do, or even oligopolies, they have a lot of price making power, but not only would they profit maximize, they might also do something called price discrimination. Price discrimination is when you charge um
Is it when you charge different prices in like different markets?
same market. So two groups of people. The key thing is groups of people,
Mm.
different prices for the same good. Okay.
Mm.
For example, actually, I'll give a quick example in real life and then I'll go back to explaining. So, real life, um, you might charge different prices for train tickets, for first class tickets, and for um, like second class tickets. But that one is kind of a different good or service, so it's not necessarily the same good or service. So, a better example might be flight tickets today versus flight tickets tomorrow for the same exact flight. The price will be different. Okay.
Mm.
Or cinema tickets for students and cinema tickets for other people. That's the best example. They're both getting the same good or service, the cinema ticket, but the students are paying a different price compared to the non-students. Okay,
Hmm.
cool. First thing before we continue is what is required for price discrimination to be possible. So you need to be able to identify two two or more groups of consumers. Okay. So, for example, student and non-student, or for example, people buying today and people buying tomorrow. If you can't identify them, you can't just say like, you can't just randomly just give people different prices. You have to be able to say this is a certain group and this is a different group. Okay.
Mm.
So when you're doing examples, the easiest example is just a student and a non-student. Cool. The second thing is these different groups, so the student and the non-student must show different elasticities. Okay, they must have different PEDs for that thing. Remember,
Mm.
price elasticity of demand is your responsiveness given a change in price. Okay,
Yep.
so for example, if cinema tickets went up to 20 quid, some people would still buy them. If cinema tickets went up to 20 quid for students, students probably would not buy it. Okay,
Hmm.
the students are elastic, other people are a bit less elastic. Okay,
Mm.
cool. Um, so that's you.
Thank you.
Okay. And then the third thing is the market must prevent resale. For example, it would be necessary to provide a student ID as you enter. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If this wasn't a criteria, then you could just buy a student ticket and just pass it on to your mate. But yeah, obviously we're just economics is all based on theory. So yeah. Another example is like trains at peak times and trains at off-peak times. It's the same good or service, but you've identified a customer buying a ticket at peak time. Okay,
Hmm.
cool. But yes, student discounts my favorite example. Let's look at the diagram now. That's the hard bit. So we've got your AR curve, and twice as steep, you've got your MR curve. And you've got another AR curve, which is, remember we said that the students are more elastic.
Yeah.
So theirs is more elastic. Okay.
Hmm.
And if it's a cinema ticket, then the marginal cost of the cinema ticket is basically flat. The reason is that every time I get an extra seat, it's barely costing me, it's not costing me random different amounts. Every seat has the same marginal cost, um, which is quite low because I've already paid for the cinema, I've already paid for the movie rights, I've already paid for all this kind of stuff. So whether I sell 14 seats or 15 seats in the cinema, it makes no difference. So you'd have to explain why marginal cost is flat. Okay.
Hmm.
It's not like the shape like that for the other diagrams. Cool. So if I do my MC curve, then MC equals MR. Okay, I'm doing MC equals MR.
Hmm.
And I get a really um, high price here. And then for the students, I do MC equals MR. And I get a really, well, not a really low because of the way I've drawn it, but a lower price. Okay.
Mm.
And a much lower quantity for non-students and a higher quantity for students. Okay.
Yep.
Cool. And then the overall diagram is just the monopoly diagram because that's what it is. A cinema might be a monopoly. But the main thing is just saying that different students and non-students or first class, sorry, peak time buyers and off-peak travelers have different elasticities. So they end up having to pay different prices. And that's good because people who are flexible, uh, people who are willing to travel off-peak get to benefit from a cheaper price, whereas others don't. And also students who are struggling on finances get to pay lower prices. So it can have a benefit, but it can also be a bad thing because firms are profit maximizing off these customers who have to travel at peak time, maybe to get to work. Okay.
Mm. Yeah.